Today we're going to do the Montessori fruit lessons. Each lesson can be done on a different day. I'm going to start with the fruit. You know that when pollen gets transported to the stigma, which is sticky, well, that pollen develops two cells, and it sends one cell down the style, and it makes a tube down the style. Once that tube is made, the pollen sends that second cell down that tube. That second cell meets the egg, and after they meet, the ovary starts to swell and swell and swell until it becomes a fruit. Inside the ovary, those tiny eggs become the seeds. The petals and the sepals are not used anymore, so they wither up and die. And you can see some here. Look at this fruit. You can see some of the dried up stamens here. Okay, and look at this old calyx. It's not useful anymore. Okay, well, you know that these fruits are really delicious and animals like to eat them. The fruits have devised different ways to protect themselves. Look at this fruit. It's very hard. The animal can't get to it very easily. And we have some fruits that are very prickly, and we have some fruits that grow under the ground, like a peanut. And that protects it. Well, let's see. Let's look inside of this fruit. Here we have a pepper, and we cut it in half. And here you can see a bunch of the seeds that used to be the eggs in the ovaries. Okay, now we're going to talk about the different kinds of fruit. This fruit is juicy and succulent. It is called a succulent fruit. Apples, strawberries, peppers, pineapples are all succulent fruits. Let's look at this fruit. This fruit is not succulent, it's dry. Filberts, hazelnuts, peanuts, sunflower seeds, acorn, rice, basically any grains are dry fruit. Did you know that they were fruit? Well, now we have different kinds of dry fruit. Sometimes you have a dry fruit that bursts open when its seeds are ripe in order to get the seeds out. This kind of dry fruit is called dehiscent. The examples of these are peas and violas and poppies. Then there's a kind of dry fruit that doesn't burst open when its seeds are ripe, and those are called indehiscent. And those are filberts, acorns, sunflower seeds, grains. Okay, let's talk about succulent fruits. Here I have a succulent fruit. The whole fruit, the whole entire thing is called the pericarp. The word pericarp comes from the Greek word karpos, meaning fruit. Peri means around the whole fruit. So let's look at this. Here we go. The skin on the outside is called the epicarp. Epicarp comes from the Greek word epi, which means above the fruit. This part here, the part that we eat, the middle part, is called the mesocarp, from the Greek word meso, meaning middle. And right here, this hard part right here that's inside of the fruit, that is called the endocarp. Inside of the endocarp, there's a seed that is protected. This is not the seed, but inside of there is the seed. And those are the parts of a succulent fruit. Wow. We can classify our fruits based on their parts. So we have different kinds of fruits with different kinds of names. When you have a fruit that has a succulent epicarp, a succulent mesocarp, and a hard endocarp that protects one seed, we call this a drupe. Drupe comes from the Greek word drupos, which means overripe, wrinkled olive. So examples of drupes are cherries, mangoes, apricots, plums, nectarines, peach. Okay, here we have our fruit. This fruit has a succulent epicarp, a succulent mesocarp, and it surrounds many seeds. This kind of fruit we call a berry. A green pepper is actually a berry. We have blueberries, pomegranates, tomatoes, bananas, kiwis, oranges, grapefruits, and lemons are all berries. Now, here we have a fruit that has an epicarp that is so closely attached to the mesocarp that it forms a rind and it surrounds a lot of seeds. We call this a pepo. Watermelons, cantaloupes, pumpkins, and squash are all pepos. Then we have a fruit that has a succulent epicarp, a succulent mesocarp, and it has a core which contains 4 or 5 seeds. This is called a pome, P-O-M-E, pome. Apples, pears, and quinces are all pomes. All right, now the last thing I wanted to talk about today is classification of the fruits based on the flowers. So different kinds of flowers produce different kinds of fruits. So when you have a fruit that comes from a single flower with a single pistil, it's called a simple fruit. Here is a simple fruit. Apple, plum cuts, and most succulents are simple fruits. When you have a fruit that comes from one flower and many pistils, you have what's called an aggregate fruit. It comes from the Latin word aggregare, which means to group together. I have a whole bunch of little fruitlets. Each of these tiny little things are dried fruitlets. The red, luscious part is the ovary. So raspberries, blackberries, strawberries are all aggregate fruits. When there is a fruit that's made of many flowers and the ovaries join together to make a fruit, we call it a composite fruit. Can you see? Here we have, and they're all joined together to make composite fruits. Pineapple, mulberries, and figs are all composite fruits. Now for exploration and follow-up for the fruit, you can go to the grocery store, well, maybe not, but you can look in your refrigerator and you can look at your fruits and you can try to figure out what kind of fruit do I have. You can classify them, you can make collections of different kinds of dried fruits, and you can try to figure out what kind of fruit do I have. Is it a pepo? What kind of flower did it come from? Is it dry? Is it succulent? Do the parts of a fruit tell me which part is the endocarp? All right.